Coronation Street teased that darkness is looming once again over the cobbled streets of Weatherfield. It began in the early morning light, where silence hung heavy in the sterile corridors of Weatherfield General Hospital. A nurse adjusted an IV bag with robotic precision, while a heart monitor beeped steadily in the background. Gary Windus lay still beneath the stiff white sheets, his face bruised and bandaged, his breathing shallow. The scent of antiseptic hovered in the air like a warning. Unbeknownst to the hospital staff, a shadow moved quietly through the hallway. Lou, clad in a long, dark coat and wearing a worried expression, slipped through the half-open door to Gary's room. She didn't belong here. There were no visiting hours for strangers. But Lou wasn't just a stranger. There was something in the way she looked at Gary's unconscious form, a storm of regret, desperation, and something more. She sat beside him, careful not to disturb the tubes and wires. Her hand hovered over his before finally resting gently atop it. "You have to fight," she whispered, voice trembling. "They don't know what really happened. But I do." Lou's visit was brief and clandestine, but it set something in motion. Elsewhere, in a modest terraced house not far from the hospital, Maria Windus stood motionless in the kitchen, staring out the window with an untouched cup of tea cooling beside her. Her son, Liam, sat at the table with his cereal, the spoon scraping the bowl far too loudly for such a somber morning. Neither of them spoke much these days. Maria had received the call from the hospital hours ago. Gary was deteriorating. He was slipping into a coma, and unless someone made a decision about his treatment, they would be forced to intervene. But how could she choose for a man who had chosen to walk away from her? From their family? "Why are they calling you now?" Liam asked, voice thick with resentment. Maria turned, caught off guard by the venom in her son's tone. "Because I'm still listed as next of kin," she replied softly. Liam scoffed. "He left us. He doesn't deserve anything from us." And yet, despite his bitterness, the boy's eyes betrayed him. There was worry there. Fear. Outside the house, life on Coronation Street continued with deceptive normalcy. But underneath, secrets festered like rot in the foundations. In Roy's cafe, Nina Lucas sat in the corner booth, stirring her coffee without drinking it. Her mind wasn't on the mug in front of her. It was somewhere far darker. Somewhere just past the edge of memory. She had seen something that night. Something brutal. It came to her in flashes, a streetlight flickering, the metallic tang of blood, the sound of fists hitting flesh. Gary, lying on the ground, unmoving. But no matter how hard she tried, the face of the attacker remained shrouded in shadow. Summer Spellman slid into the seat opposite her, phone clutched tightly in her hand. She looked worried, but tried to mask it with a gentle smile. "You okay, Nina? You've been out of it since the night Gary disappeared." Nina shook her head, the spoon in her cup rattling. "I saw it happen. I just can't remember it all," she murmured. "I saw him get hurt. Badly." Summer reached across the table, trying to meet Nina's eyes. "We weren't involved. You know that, right? Whatever happened, it wasn't because of us." But the words felt hollow, even as they left her mouth. The truth was, neither of them should have been out that night. They had followed Oddie Allahan into a world they didn't fully understand, a world of altered consciousness and dangerous games. And now someone was paying the price. Later, in Victoria Gardens, Nina confronted Oddie. "You brought us into this. You made us try that stuff. You led us into that alley." Oddie crossed his arms defensively, guilt flickering behind his eyes. "I didn't make you do anything. You both wanted to try it. We all agreed. Don't pin this on me. But you left us there. You just walked away, and Gary, he was attacked because of us. Or because of something we saw. We don't even know. The argument escalated quickly. Voices were raised. Summer tried to pull Nina back, but the damage had already been done. Rumors began to swirl in the community. Gary Windus, once a protector and provider, was now a symbol of something sinister. His collapse had created a vacuum, and secrets once buried deep were beginning to surface. People whispered in corners, exchanged nervous glances, and speculated endlessly. Back in the hospital, the doctors met privately. His condition is deteriorating. We'll need to induce a deeper coma if the swelling doesn't reduce, one said, flipping through Gary's chart. And legally, we still don't have a proxy decision-maker, another added. We've reached out to the ex-wife, but she hasn't signed anything. Lou lingered outside the room, listening. She knew something they didn't. Something that could change the course of everything. But revealing it would mean exposing herself, too. Outside, the shadows on Coronation Street grew longer. The air turned heavier. Somewhere, the person responsible for Gary's condition walked free, watching and waiting. And Nina's memories continued to claw their way back to the surface, one jagged fragment at a time. A late summer rain began to fall across Weatherfield, pattering softly against the windows of the hospital and the homes that bordered its familiar streets. Within the grey mist, unease took deeper root, threading its way through every conversation, every sideways glance, and every silence that stretched too long. Nina sat again in her flat above the cafe, the flickering lamp beside her casting trembling shadows against the walls. Her journal lay open, pages smeared with half-formed sketches and fragments of memory. Her pencil trembled in her grip as she tried to draw the figure from that night, a silhouette lunging from the shadows, a boot raised mid-kick, a glint of something metallic. The face still would not come. Her mind spun in circles. The longer she sat in isolation, the more her thoughts turned inward, twisting and reshaping the fragments into new horrors. Was it someone she knew? Someone who knew Gary? She remembered his scream, the sickening crunch, and the splash of blood on brick. What haunted her more was the certainty in her gut. The attacker had known exactly what they were doing. Summer's calls had gone unanswered for 2 days. When Summer finally confronted her in person, it was not with anger but exhaustion. You can't keep shutting me out. We went through this together. Nina looked up, eyes hollow. No, we didn't. I'm the one who saw it. I'm the one who remembers just enough to go insane. Summer reached into her bag and pulled out a piece of paper, a printout of an article. A CCTV still, blurry but revealing. A figure in a hoodie running from the direction of the alley where Gary had been found. Police found this. They are asking if anyone can identify them. You said you saw something metallic, right? Look at the reflection in this image. The outline of a crowbar, faint but undeniable, caught in a freeze frame. Nina's breath caught. That's it, she whispered. That's what they used. But the face remained a mystery. Elsewhere, Oddie paced the living room of the Allahan house, guilt gnawing at his insides. He hadn't told anyone everything. Not even Summer and Nina. That night, when they'd followed him into the alley, he had sensed someone else lurking nearby. He thought it was just paranoia, a result of whatever they had taken. But what if it hadn't been? What if someone had followed them? His father, Dev, had started to notice his son's change in demeanor. The sharpness, the withdrawn silences. But Oddie refused to say anything. If this got out, he could be implicated. He hadn't attacked Gary, but he had led the girls there, and he had abandoned them when things got strange. He remembered a sound, like a thud behind him, but he hadn't turned back. He had fled. Now, he wasn't sure if his fear had made him forget, or if he was simply unwilling to see the truth. In the hospital, Lou returned. This time, she carried a file. One the doctors hadn't seen. "You need to listen to me," she told the attending physician. "Gary had given me power of attorney months ago. He didn't want Maria involved. I didn't say anything earlier because I was scared." The doctor frowned, flipping through the document. It was legitimate. Word traveled quickly. Maria was furious. She stormed into the hospital with Liam in tow, demanding answers. But Lou was already in Gary's room, speaking softly into his ear as if he could still hear her. "You should have told me," Maria snapped from the doorway. Lou stood, calm despite the storm. "He trusted me. He was my husband." "Was?" Their eyes locked. Maria took a step closer. "What are you hiding, Lou?" But Lou said nothing. She merely looked back at Gary, her silence a veil. Meanwhile, Liam stood behind them, watching, absorbing everything. The boy was more perceptive than they realized. And he, too, had questions. He remembered something about the night his dad disappeared. He had seen Gary leave the house angrily after an argument. Maria had said he went to cool off, but Liam knew there had been more. In the following days, Nina, now obsessed with uncovering the truth, began retracing their steps that night. She walked the alley again, visited the bus stop, replayed everything in her head. That's when it hit her. A noise that night. A car. Someone had driven away moments after the attack. She had chalked it up to coincidence, but now it gnawed at her. Summer, meanwhile, had taken the CCTV still to Oddie. She pushed it into his hands. "You were there longer than we were. You saw more than you're saying." "Who was that?" Oddie studied the photo, jaw clenched. "I don't know," he muttered. "You do. Or you suspect." He slammed the photo down. "And if I do? What do you want from me? To accuse someone without proof? You think I want to end up like Gary?" There it was. The fear. Summer took a step back, eyes wide. "You think they'll come after you?" He nodded. "Then help us find them before they do." By the end of the week, the community had turned tense. Lou's presence became more pronounced, her every action watched. She walked alone, always looking over her shoulder. And finally, she made a quiet visit to the police station. She told them part of the story. Enough to raise questions. Enough to open an investigation. What she didn't say was that she had met with Gary the night he was attacked. He had something with him. Documents, a list of names, something he said could destroy lives if it got out. He had planned to hand it in. She had tried to dissuade him. He hadn't listened. Now, Lou suspected that wasn't a random attack. It was a warning. Back at the cafe, Nina and Summer made a pact. They would go to the police too, and they would tell them everything. The alley, the substances, the hallucinations. Every detail, no matter how incriminating. Because if they didn't, someone else might end up like Gary. Or worse. And somewhere in the shadows of Weatherfield, the attacker watched them all, knowing that the noose was tightening. But they weren't done yet. Not by a long shot. Night fell heavy over Weatherfield, and with it came the promise of reckoning. The tension that had been simmering now hovered just beneath the surface, a storm waiting to break. In the quiet of the hospital room, Gary stirred. His fingers twitched. The heart monitor's steady rhythm quickened slightly, enough for the attending nurse to glance up. It wasn't a full awakening, but it was a sign, a flicker of consciousness returning. Word traveled fast. Within the hour, Lou, Maria, and even Liam had gathered outside his room. But the doctors kept them at bay. He's not ready, they warned. We need to keep the environment calm. But calm was not what anyone felt. Outside the hospital, Nina and Summer stood side by side on the pavement, a worn envelope clutched in Nina's hands. The CCTV photo. A map Nina had drawn of the alley. And a confession, handwritten and signed by both of them. They had decided to come clean. Just before stepping into the police station, Nina paused. I remembered the car, she said, her voice barely a whisper. It was dark blue. License plate started with KX. Summer nodded. That's something. Inside, the officers listened intently. The girls spoke without interruption, laying bare every detail. The drugs. The hallucinations. The fear. They described the attackers' movements. Nina handed over the drawing. It wasn't just vague memories anymore. Her mind had finally stitched the fragments together. When they mentioned Lou's secret meeting with Gary, the officer's face changed. Suddenly, the pieces on their board began to shift. Later that night, as Lou sat alone in her flat, the knock came. Not the police. Oddie. He looked pale, shaken. I remember now, he said. The attacker, he wasn't a stranger. Lou stared at him. Who was it? I think it was someone Gary used to work with. That job, whatever he was involved in before, he said there were people who wanted him silent. I didn't understand then, but I do now. It was payback. Lou's face darkened. That's what I feared. Gary's awakening was slow. First came flickers of awareness. Then names, Liam, Maria, Lou. His eyes opened fully just 2 days later, blinking at the harsh white light. The first word he spoke was, run. Maria leaned in, gripping his hand. What do you mean? Gary, you're safe now. He shook his head, lips cracking. They'll come back. They think I talked. The police were already on high alert. Nina's drawing, combined with Gary's warning, sent them on a targeted search. The blue car was traced to a man named Ronnie Henshaw, an old associate of Gary's from his time doing off-the-books security work. They found Ronnie at a rundown warehouse outside of town, packing to flee. Inside the car, beneath the passenger seat, they found the crowbar. Blood-stained. Matched to Gary. Ronnie confessed quickly. Gary had threatened to go to the press with documents that could expose illegal dealings from years ago, money laundering, weapons, names of men still working inside reputable firms. The attack was meant to scare him. I didn't think I hit him that hard, Ronnie muttered. Didn't want to kill him. Just stop him. He was arrested. But the damage had been done. Back at the hospital, Gary's recovery was steady, but his trust had fractured. Maria and Lou both hovered, but Gary kept his distance. He had survived, but he didn't know how to return to life as it had been. Nina, now freed from the burden of doubt, visited him one morning with a sketchbook. She placed it on his table without saying a word. On the first page was a portrait of Gary, as she remembered him before the attack. On the next page, the shadowy figure she'd finally remembered, now named and behind bars. You protected a lot of people, she said. Even when we didn't know it. Gary nodded slowly, eyes misting. I just didn't want my past to hurt anyone else. Oddie made amends in his own way. At Roy's cafe, he apologized publicly to Nina and Summer, admitting his role in what happened and vowing to change. Roy, always the quiet observer, served them tea without a word of judgment. In the end, Gary would never be the same. Neither would any of them. But the truth had come to light, and in Weatherfield, that was more than most ever got. The cobbled streets remained, steady beneath their feet, as life began, slowly, cautiously, to move forward again.